Chapter 13. Will's legs were burning by the time they realized. Guys, where's Baz? Everyone had slowed to a halt and looked behind them at the shaded road. A gentle wind hissed through the trees as if to say, he's not here. The adrenaline drained from Ryan's system and a powerful urge to cry came over him. He broke away from the group and began to sprint back towards the cabin. Reese pulled him back. What are you doing? I need to go and get him. Ryan spat angrily, pulling his way out of the Scotsman's bear-like grip. It's not going to help if we don't know what to do, Ryan, Will replied for Reese. We need to think this through. Carefully, but fast. Definitely think this through fast. The musician blinked a few times. What the fuck are we supposed to do right now? We just need to go back and storm the cabin or something. We're not the fucking FBI, Ryan. How well do you think that's going to go? Well, sitting here and doing nothing won't help either. Ryan stated, his fear making him stutter. There's 3 of us and one of him. There were 4 of us before we all got tied up, Ryan. Reese said quietly. That was because he got us by surprise. If we go now, we can do the same to him, right? What, tie him up? No, we... Ryan sighed, realizing how ridiculous his argument was sounding. Reese was going to be expecting them. There was no doubt about it. He ran his hands through his hair. We just can't leave Baz there, though. No one said we were leaving him. Jesus Christ, Ryan, we're going back for him. There's no doubt about that. They waited in a momentarily thought-out silence. It's not just Baz we need to worry about getting help to. Luis needs an ambulance, the police, something. And we hardly look that good. Except for me, of course. Reese said with an attempt of a smile as he tried to lighten the mood. How is everyone actually feeling? Is this really the time for that right now? No, seriously, guys, our friend technically just kidnapped us and held us hostage. What position does that put us in? How are we supposed to feel? What are we supposed to do? Ryan looked at the ground and shuffled his feet. What happened? Was this literally about the game? The 50-20 mode? How did he suddenly just snap? Vel's face dawned on realization. It wasn't sudden, he whispered, his face washed over with a mask of fury. It wasn't fucking sudden! There were loads of signs beforehand! Reese looked at the musician curiously. Ryan had a general idea of what was about to be said. Think about it! He wasn't eating, he either didn't fall asleep or fell asleep randomly, he kept becoming distant. We had the sign that something was wrong. Will looked at Ryan. That very first day, Ryan, you were right. Wait, what do you mean he was right? I thought something was wrong with him after the river ride. Ryan explained, his voice trailing away. Reese ignored the slight sense of betrayal at his 2 friends' secrecy. This is crazy, Will murmured, holding the back of his head in concentration. This is fucking crazy. Okay, we need help. Baz needs help. Luis needs help. Does anyone have a phone on them? He asked, despite how unuseful one would be. Will and Ryan shook their heads. Okay, the closest place to us is the reception. What are you suggesting, Reese? I woke up before you guys in the cabin. I mean, it wasn't perfectly coherent conversation, but I did speak to Luis, briefly, before being knocked out again. So, it didn't help? Well, at worst, I stalled for time. At best, I made him hesitant to do anything. Reese explained. And I think I can do that again. You guys could go and get help from the reception. Wait, hold up. You want to go and get him yourself? Yeah, why not? By yourself? With Louis? Reese, he's hardly safe to be around right now. Ryan, look, he's not himself, but he's still Louis. People can just instantly lose themselves overnight, right? It might not have been sudden, but going from what he was like at the restaurant to being like this is still a pretty quick change, right? Both Ryan and Will nodded dubiously. I'm going to talk to him again. Slowly make my way to Baz. Then we can meet you two back at the reception. We can stay in pairs. But you're going to be alone until you get there. The youngest man argued. Look, we're wasting time. Let's just all go in together. Will gazed down the road as he spoke. Actually, one person on their own is going to be much less intimidating than 3 people. Louis doesn't look at us like we know each other. To him, we're probably strangers or something. You saw how he looked at us. Ryan shuffled awkwardly. Having less people might actually increase our chances of getting Baz out. Oh my god, none of you ever watched a horror movie or just a movie in general? Don't split up. It's the one fucking rule you need to follow. But we don't want to scare him. Scare him? Scare him? What about him scaring me? Is that allowed? It's the best option at the moment, mate. The musician replied with concern at the passing time. Ryan looked at the group doubtfully. His fingers twitched as he fought the urge to simply run back himself. I don't agree with it, but clearly I'm outvoted, so can we just get on with it? The Scotsman took a deep breath. Once we start, you don't stop running and you don't look back. Understand? He addressed it to Ryan, but both him and the musician nodded. Okay then, I'll see you guys on the other side. Don't leave him behind, Reese. Ryan ordered with a cold undertone. You know I won't. Ryan nodded and looked at Will. Come on then, the purple-haired man said and sprinted away. Ryan followed. Reese watched for a few moments and then chased after them. He was going to save Baz. But he was already too late. Baz's ears were ringing as if he had stood next to a church bell that had been struck. The back of his head burned and his lips were shaking with a mix of pain and tiredness and terror. He pushed himself back up, feeling his knee grind against bone as he did. But a garden chair came smashing down over his head and he fell back to the floor. Louis pounced on him and held him down, his fist colliding with the big-haired man's face again and again and again and again. In the brief pauses between the strikes, Baz looked up into his friend's white eyes. They seemed to shimmer in the setting sun's light, but his face was a dark silhouette outlined in the deep reds of the clouded sky. Louis showed no sign of tiring, no sign of regretting what he was doing. No, he was enjoying this. A few marks could be seen on the younger man's skin from where Baz had fought back, but they were nothing when compared to the torture he had been through. Blood filled up inside of Baz's mouth, and he felt it trickle down his throat. He began to cough in between the punches, thick goblets of red bubbling over his lips. It made the younger man giggle with pleasure, and he stopped to watch the pink-haired man splatter. His corrupted mind ran through all of the different ways he could hurt the weakening creature in front of him, and he looked around for any object he could use. And then he saw it. His knife. It was just inside of the doorway to go back inside of the cabin. He stood up of Baz and picked it up, fascinated by the way it glinted. He grinned. This is going to be good. Baz rolled to his side and spat out the blood in his mouth, noticing how wobbly a few of his teeth felt. He couldn't see through his left eye, and he generally felt numb. The sleeve of his hoodie had been ripped and it hung on by threads. He heard the hot tub jets come on and he looked up, his vision in a sheet of red, to see Louis grinned at him. The next thing he knew, he was being dragged to the sound of rushing water. He clenched his eyes shut and fought against the younger man's grip, but it was vice-like. He was lifted into the air and plunged into scalding water. It might have just been the shock, but he felt like he was being boiled alive. He couldn't get out of it. His neck was being held down to the bottom of the tub. The jets were pushing into his skin and the bubbles were running into his nose. The faint echo of Louis' diabolical laughter could be heard through the water. Just as his chest was getting tight, he was dragged back to the surface. He tried to take in a breath, but was quickly pushed back under. Water rushed into his open mouth and he tried to choke it back out. The pink-haired man felt his chest constrict and his head dropped as if he was slowly being squeezed tighter and tighter by a coiling snake. There was no air to even breathe out at this point. He was empty. Noises began to fade, but Louis wasn't done yet. He heaved Beth's head back out of the water, and the smell of the damp but fresh air, the older man spluttered. A mix of saliva, blood and water trickled down his chin. After a few deep breaths, he opened up his eyes to his last ever sight. Louis stood with a knife gripped in his free hand. The tip of the blade pointing towards Beth's neck, and his other hand clamped around a thick lock of Beth's pink hair to hold him in place. "Move, and I'll end it now," he stated coldly. Beth's lip trembled in unspoken words. It was impossible to tell if it was just the water running down his face or if he was actually crying. A smirk crept its way across Louis' mouth. "Do you remember what I told you? Do you remember what I said I would do if he didn't comply?" he hissed. "Louis, please don't do this," Bess whispered, his hoarse voice breaking with fear. Louis giggled. "We need to send him a message, Bess. And guess what you are? The message." Bess quickly grabbed hold of the knife in his hands before it could move. Well, that was the plan. He could feel it slipping. He felt his skin slowly rip as the blade dug further into his palms. Maybe if it was only the blood, he could have held the knife at bay. But his hands were dripping with the hot tub's water. He felt the tip of the blade against his neck. It felt hot. The sudden squelch of the metal pushing into the flesh stuck in the pink-haired man's ears, as if a broken record was repeating a jolting tune. He felt something molten trickle down his neck. He couldn't make a noise. He didn't feel like crying. He watched with a blank expression as Louis' face darkened with terror. The knife was pulled out and blood sprayed out of the wound. He soundlessly slipped back into the water. The dripping knife clattered to the floor, sending metallic reverberation through the air. The younger man couldn't look away from his hands. His hands. His blood-dripping hands. The blood was hot. It was burning. He looked down into the water and saw a cloud of red surrounding a body that suddenly seemed so familiar to him. A gargled sob escaped his lips as he slammed the hot tub lid closed. He tried to support himself against the tub's side, but his body felt like heavy lead. Memories were flooding back to him, some old, some new, some unfamiliar and yet so recognizable. Bloody driplets of water bubbled through the broken seal of the hot tub lid. A sorrowful reminder of what he had just done. He sank to his knees and sobbed. There were no words to be said. Baz was thrown into an inky darkness. What way was up? What way was down? Who cares anymore? He felt his life steadily ebb out of him. His lungs felt like they were filling up. He felt a thick substance cradle his broken body. There was no noise, no urge to breathe, no impulse to escape, no heroic adrenaline surge to get him out, no gentle light to call him away. There was nothing. Death was rather unremarkable. He closed his eyes. His true final words would never be spoken, nor would they ever be heard. His life didn't end in scream. It ended in a whimper. They waited in a momentarily thoughtful silence. Silence. And his other hand clamped around the tight lock of piss. Oh, fuck, where are my eyes going? The dripping knife clattered to the floor, sending metallic reverberations through the air. Wow, what the fuck, Saber? Oh damn, finally done.